show you guys the 3 most difficult elements to get in Elemental Awakening, and I will showcase them to you guys. Time, reality collapse, and gravity. First, I'm going to start off with time. Okay, so, alright, so time, that's the color it is. The quote for it, casualty kneels before you. Okay, let's start off with timeline divergence. So you can pause the video and read this if you want, or you can just watch this following part and it'll only take like 5 to 10 seconds. So you can place a timeline on yourself by pressing E, or on other people by pressing E on them as well. But in order to place a timeline on a person, you need to hover your mouse cursor over the person that you want to put a timeline on. And as you can see, you can put a timeline on yourself as well. Alright, revert is kind of special. So revert has 2 modes. So revert, if you are doing it with a timeline, so if you're doing it on yourself with a timeline, basically it warps you back to your timeline with your saved mana and health. It does not save your cooldowns though. It does save your mana and health. And then if you do revert on another person with a timeline, then it'll send them back to that location of the timeline. However, their mana and health will not regenerate, but they will get stunned for a few seconds, making revert a pretty good combo starter. Yeah, and in order to use revert, you also need to hover your mouse cursor over someone. Okay, now for reverts, phase 2, without a timeline. Basically, it sets a ticking clock on someone, or you can just read this if you want, but you can pause you have to pause the video in order for it to read. Yeah, so basically, if you use revert on yourself without a timeline, basically it puts a clock on you, which it explodes after 5 seconds, and it makes a kind of, sound. And also, if anyone gets hit by that, it also regains some of your mana per person. However, if you do it on a person without a timeline, basically it's gonna do a similar mechanic. Like, it's gonna do a really delayed explosion at them, and they cannot dodge it whatsoever. Like, it's literally undodgeable, and they will also take major, they'll actually, they won't take major damage, but they'll take less damage than from you if you do it on them. Like it'll do probably 3 times less damage, and it does not steal mana. And that's all for revert, which is probably the most explained ability from time. But I think there's another one. Okay, now for temporal shift. Basically, it consumes all of your timelines to give you invincibility frames, or iframes, for 5 seconds, meaning that you cannot take damage when that is active. However, you cannot use any other abilities when this is active. And for each timeline consumed, it adds an extra second. So if you have one timeline consumed, it'll be 6 seconds of invincibility. Also, it consumes 25% of your max mana. Okay, time bomb. Now this one is kind of interesting. Okay, so time bomb. Basically, what it does, it fires like a time bomb at your mouse cursor, and within contact, it makes a large explosion. And then the thingamajig from the explosion grows bigger, and then there will be like a small like bubble around it, like from the thingamajig from the explosion. I don't know what it's called, so please don't touch me for that. Yeah. So basically, if there are any people in that bubble that have a timeline in them as well, uh, they will take like an extra set of damage. Basically, it'll consume their timeline, and it will attack them with a beam. I cannot find a perfect example though, because the other people in this private server are like auto grinding, and I don't want to mess up their auto grinding proof. Okay, now for interdiction. Probably my most favorite move in the entirety of Elemental Awakening. Basically, it makes like a time orb above your mouse cursor, like, and then uh and then it conjures a really like it conjures a big explosion at your mouse cursor after a certain period of time, doing insanely massive damage to those who get hit. Now here's the visual effects of it. You'll find out why it's my most favorite. The sound effects are really crazy. Basically, when the beam stops is when the damage stops. By the way, the first I think interdiction used it to shatter shields on the first hit, but I think time got nerfed so it doesn't do that anymore, if I'm correct. Alright, fast forward. Okay, so fast forward, it consumes your mana really, really quickly. However, the user gains much more speed. Like, I mean much more. And also, teleports. No, wait, no, not teleports. Your dashes will become teleports. So here's the move itself. And then you can see the speed boost, and then the teleport, like the dashes, turn into teleports, and you can see how quickly my mana is going down. Okay, time portal. This move is unique. So consumes 15% of your like max mana, and then it opens like a time portal like right above you. And then if you charge this ability down, anyone within a close range will, like, within this small area of effect, will get teleported to that. And this move is unarguably one of the best trolling moves, because you can place the time portal like in the rift area, and you know you can warp your enemy at the rift area. Now for timeline destruction. Basically, the user snaps their fingers, and every single timeline that is close to them will get shattered. Enemies with a timeline will get teleported back to their own timeline. If if there are no enemies with the timeline, even if the user has a timeline, the ability will just do this. That's what it will do, like, without time. Yeah, and I cannot, I cannot attack enemies because they're auto grinding and they'll probably get mad at me if I attack them. Okay, so that is all for the time showcase. Now, for reality collapse showcase. This one, I also think it's unique. So here's the move loadout. Here's the move loadout. Okay, so reality collapse is another heavenly magic. Its quote is distort, fracture, collapse. Okay, let's get started with the collapse ability. Basically, the user collapses into themselves, and then it's like a pretty like distance like teleport range. Basically, it teleports to the mouse cursor like that, and the shockwave from the teleport, yes, it damages enemies. On your way to teleport, though, you get a bunch of invincibility frames, and as I talked about earlier, this video, invincibility frames give you, invincibility. And that is all for collapse. I'll do it again for you guys to see. Yeah. Okay, sphere of distortion. This one is very like okay. So sphere of distortion. Basically, just like it's like uncharged version. It fires a projectile to your mouse cursor, which makes a pretty solid sized explosion that stuns enemies and damages them. Okay, now sphere of distortion charge. Uh, Basically, it makes a black hole at your mouse cursor that pulls an enemy slightly and does like takes some damage to them. Which actually it's pretty good. However, it is blockable. Keep that in mind. Sphere of fracture. This one also very unique. You can also pause the video to see like the descriptions of the abilities. Okay, so basically sphere of fracture. So you make like a small sphere will crash down to the ground. That's the uncharged version, and you can make up to 5 of these. If you make more than 5 of these, the sphere that was made first will disappear. And the charged version, okay, now the charged version is kind of unique. So charged version, so with the meteors that you made, the lights that you decide, and then the alternate projectiles, and then the amount of meteors that you made will be the amount of shockwaves that, charged sphere fracture will make. You can, you can shield through it. Okay, now, sphere of collapse. This one is also very good. Okay, sphere of collapse is a pretty good, preparation ability, if you know what I mean. So sphere of collapse, basically, it fires a projectile to your mouse cursor, and anyone within the range of the projectile explosion will get teleported to below. And while in below, you cannot use any of your abilities, and yeah, so you cannot use any of your abilities, and once you exit out of below, you'll take massive damage and stunning. But while in below, you cannot do anything about it. Yeah, so, yeah. So that's all kind of all for Sphere of Collapse. So pretty good preparation ability for combos. Dissonance. Okay, this one is pretty good if I'm being honest. So Dissonance, basically a shockwave that propels enemies upwards around you. And yeah, there's not much to say about Dissonance other than pretty good area of effect. But 18-second cooldown, it can be blocked if I'm correct. Fear of Collapse cannot be blocked though. Okay, Traveler. This one I also like. Basically, your dashes will turn into teleports uh, for 30 seconds. You will also regain 20% of your max health upon casting this ability, and you'll also deal 50% more damage for 15 seconds. So here's how the ability looks like. Teleports. Honestly, there's not much to say about Traveler other than it's a pretty good form ability. Alright, and that's all for a Traveler. Now for the Black Sun, the most OP move for PvPing. Okay, so Black Sun, basically, it makes a, like, first it charges up, like, it makes a black hole above the user, like a really gargantuan one, and, basically, it makes, like, lots of, like, really small meteorites, and once occasionally, it makes, like, really gargantuan shockwaves that, break shields, making this ability. Yeah, there's the shockwaves that break the shields, and those are the small orbs that just like stun your enemies. Believe it or not, the Black Sun was in fact so powerful that it had to even get nerfed. The Black Sun used to fire a lot more of those like small orbs. Oh, and also from the enemy's perspective, their spring will also go gray. And when the Black Sun is about to get fired, like before the black hole grows, the enemies will get stunned for a pretty long time. And that is all for Reality Collapse. Now for Gravity. This is the best element in Elemental Awakening for PvP. So Gravity is a legendary curse. And you might be wondering, how do you get a curse? Basically, a curse is like it's like if you've played Primordial Arts before, then you'll know what I mean by it. So basically, it makes like basically so like a basically something falls out, like there'll be a crack in the sky, and then something will fall, and then that's when a curse will spawn. 1% chance per minute. Within those curses, uh, basically there's like a 1% chance that you'll get gravity from it. Yeah, so that's how you get gravity. Okay, now onto the main showcase. basically the singularity ability is a passive. So basically there's a small chance whenever that you get damaged. Basically, uh, it makes like a bunch of like shields around you, like purple shields, and it makes you have like basically like an immense gravity state that doubles your defense, which means that you will take like half as much damage for 8 seconds. However, that has a really small chance of applying whenever you get damaged. So, that ability is really good when you're against an element with like rapid fire or something like that. Now for the Flux ability. Basically, consumes 10% of the user's mana, and it launches the user like slightly to their mouse cursor. Yeah, like that. And if propelled from the ground upwards, then it also launches enemies upwards with them as well. Doesn't do any damage though. Okay, now Crush. Basically, it's like an area of effect at your mouse cursor. Alright? Yeah, so it's an area of effect. You can redirect it, and it has really good range if I'm being honest. And now, the more you charge Crush, the bigger its range will get, and the more damage it will do. And at max charge, it shatters shields. And the range is also really gargantuan and does a lot of damage. 2. Push. Basically, it pushes enemies away from you. And it also does damage to them. We cannot forget that. And now when you charge push, it does something different. So when you have push charged, it can deflect certain projectiles back to the certain direction that you're aiming push. Basically, the push range is increased. Same with the damage. However, the push width is smaller. And I'll try to show you guys a projectile deflection moment. It's pretty solid. Okay, now for Skyhammer. Basically, the user crashes down to the surface. The user needs to be in the air to use it, and Skyhammer, and depending on how high you are, it makes like a really large shockwave when you crash down to the surface. And the damage and range and stunning, if I'm correct. Yeah. Yeah, so the range, damage, and stunning will increase the higher that you are. So here's Skyhammer like from the ground. Yeah, so that's just like the first phase of Skyhammer. Now for Skyhammer, it's like its ultimate phase. So to get the big explosion that you guys want, so you're gonna want to go to World's Zenith, and then you want to keep on using Flux forwards, or if you want to, you have to use Flux forwards. Make sure that you don't go out of mana like I just did, and that because that may cost you. It makes a really gargantuan explosion that launches enemies upwards like crazy. It also stuns them. Basically, it's a celestial nuke, but it's like right at you. and with a much lower cooldown. Okay, now onto the unique abilities. Rise and Fall. So these two abilities combined together is the most OP ability for grinding in this game. So Rise, basically it makes a bunch of meteors at your mouse cursor formed from like a singularity projectile, and yeah, so that's what Rise does. And then Fall, with those meteors, you can direct your mouse cursor. Yeah, and it has like lots of experience gain. And that move is just really powerful in general. Okay, now Pressure. Okay, Pressure is kind of unique as well. So, it's kind of similar to Time Portal, how it does no damage. Basically, it's like an area of effect around you. Basically, it sends out, like, gravitational waves come down to Earth, and, basically, it, like, removes, like, it makes enemies go, colorblind, and it also distorts their vision greatly. And it also stuns them for a pretty amount of time, and projectiles will also get crushed it down to the floor. So so that's how the ability looks like. And as you can see, that projectile just got crushed it down to the floor. And remember, you still can hit enemies while you're like high with this ability. Yeah, so you can keep that in mind. And also Gravity's quote, the power to bend space. Okay, now this gravitic fluctuation. It is not released yet, which means I cannot like do the visual showcase on it. I can tell you what it does though. So gravitic fluctuation, basically it fly using gravity, which it drains mana, as well as you gain access to 3 new special abilities while in this mode, and you can access them by pressing R, T, and G on your keyboard. You cannot use regular abilities in this mode, which means you cannot use Crush, Push, Skyhammer, Rise, Fall, and Pressure. Same with Flux as well. I think Singularity still works though, because it is a passive ability. Yeah. So, I don't know anything much else about how the abilities might look like or any of that stuff. So, that's pretty much all for this, video. Hopefully you found my, time, reality collapse, and gravity showcase kind of helpful to you, or at least you got entertained by it. And, yeah, so this was a showcase of the 3 most difficult elements to get in Elemental Awakening. So, I guess I will see you guys in the next video.